Catch Master of the Game on CTV. Oh yes, nuggets of inspiration and delightful treats for your enjoyment. Whether you love power, money, beauty or fame, there is so much to learn from Master of the Game. Only in the place to be. The coolest channel, CTV. Thank you for checking us out on CTV, Ghana's #1, and welcome to Master of the Game, the program on which we bring you the movers, shakers, icons, and legends of our beloved motherland, Ghana. The name is Darkwah, Kwasi Darkwah, and I'm delighted to be united with a lovely lady who chose to look after the eye. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and all of mankind desire to behold beauty. But what is man without his eye? And what is the eye without professionals who will care for it tenderly? With me is an ophthalmologist, a specialist in the diseases and care of the eye, who has traveled around the world to look at what best practice we can all use to look after our eyes. Dr. Wendoline Owusua Asiedu-Twum was voted the best head of a medical practice in Ghana in the year 2023, and she joins me today, especially in the month of March, when we're having the glaucoma month, to talk about wellness and care for the eye. Welcome, Wendoline.
Thank you.
Wendoline describes herself as a very happily married mother of 3 who happens to also care for people medically and surgically, correct?
Right.
Of all the professions in the world, why did you choose to be an eye specialist?
First of all, good morning to your listeners, and thank you. I think I'm very honored to be on your show. So, ophthalmology. Let me see. Ophthalmology was not my first choice initially. Amazingly, pediatrics was my first choice.
You wanted to look about children?
Yes, I've always loved that. So that was the main reason why I went to medical school. But unfortunately, when I was doing my house job at the military hospital, you spend 6 months in pediatrics, 6 months in another discipline. My first place of call was pediatrics. I was very excited about it, but during that 6-month period, there were 2 strike actions. And being in the military hospital, we were under Ministry of Defense then, so we couldn't go on strike. On all those 2 occasions, I was...
These were strike actions for doctors?
Yes, strike actions for generally doctors, nurses, etc. So during that time, coincidentally, I was always the one on call during those strike actions, and it broke my heart too much to see people rushing with their children all the way from Koforidua, and they are clutching a dead child. They just get to me and say, Dr. Giacolano, have the baby or have the child. And the child is already cold. Rigor mortis has set in, child is stiff, and the mother didn't even notice.
Well, was that a way of expressing their anger that they brought their dead child all the way there and they say, Dr. Giacolano? What exactly
They
was
didn't
it?
even know the child was dead, but in their desperation, they just thrust the child at me. They meet you at the emergency, outside the pediatric emergency. They just meet me then say, Dr. Jimmy Bannon, have my child. My child needs to be seen.
Oh.
And it
So
wasn't
save
one
my
person.
child.
Yes, save my child indirectly. Only for you to look at the child and the child is already gone. Child is stiff. Rigor mortis has set in, but the mother didn't even notice.
But isn't it normal that if they would bring a patient to the hospital, there has to be triage first?
Unfortunately,
How
once
do
they
they
rush...
bypass that to rush to you?
When you get to the emergency, maybe I'm just going about my duties because almost all cases were being brought, so I was very obvious in the surroundings and wearing my white coat. They just rush to you. In fact, they want to bypass everyone and rush to you because they are desperate. That's a desperate mother. And I lost so many children
but at a
through no fault
military
of mine.
hospital, how many people were on call for emergencies at the time?
At the pediatric emergency, I was the only one. Usually those times we were fewer in number. Though we were civilians, we were still under Ministry of Defense, and we were very few. At that time, it was a privilege for you to work there. The salary was good. I was getting twice what my colleagues in the with Ghana Health Service were getting. So they took it just a few of us. So we had to be in the emergency, and that was my experience. I think after that, I had several nights, sleepless nights, and I just decided this wasn't my calling.
This was your mid to late 20s or
Yes.
your early 30s?
No, late 20s, mid to late
Wow.
20s, and I was traumatized.
You were traumatized.
I was traumatized. I was traumatized for several, maybe for about a fortnight. I couldn't sleep well. Kept on seeing all these children that I lost through no fault of mine. And I remember the late group captain Anankra. He was the head of pediatrics then. He called me, he told me, Wendy, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, because I kept on calling him. I don't know what happened. It wasn't some were brought in dead. Before I could even run the labs, they told me, Wendy, it's not your fault. It's your first experience. But that's the reality of the profession. But then I decided if I couldn't handle it emotionally, then I didn't think pediatrics was my call. So I then thought about ophthalmology, because I had toyed with the idea of ophthalmology sometime in medical school. And that was it. So I decided.
So you toyed with the idea of ophthalmology, but I still want to understand why the choice of ophthalmology, because there are so many other areas in science.
Of course, I toyed with ophthalmology because I also realized that not many doctors were specializing in ophthalmology. Even till date, when you look at our population, a population of over 35 million Ghanaians, we have about 130 to 140 of
Are you serious?
That's the harsh reality.
When I go back to England, where I used to work before moving to Ghana, because I have type 2 diabetes, I have to have my eyes checked twice a year. So if we have less than 200 ophthalmologists for the whole nation, how do people get their eyes checked?
Of course, they are cadres of the eye care system. So we have the ophthalmologist being the driver in the seat. We have the optometrists, we have the ophthalmic nurses, we have the opticians. Opticians do not see patients, but the optometrists and the ophthalmic nurses.
Oh, so the optometrists are the one who would see people like me?
No. You have to be seen by an ophthalmologist.
Okay.
Especially when there is a medical condition involved. So you have to be seen by the ophthalmologist. If they have any challenges, they always refer the patient.
Should people be incentivized then so we can increase the number of ophthalmologists we have here? Because as it stands, a good number of doctor friends of mine from the past left the country because they felt they were not treated well, that their contribution to society was not respected, and they would go elsewhere and they were treated like they mattered, so they left. Many of them still say it's not because of the money, Kwasi. But I remember one Arab now who said, can you believe I've worked for 5.5 months and I have not been paid a salary? How do you expect me to survive? How do you expect me to... I use my father's car to get to work. How do you expect me to fill the tank? I cannot be a beggar to go and look after patients. So they left. So should there be some sort of incentive that makes it possible for more people to become ophthalmologists in Ghana?
Definitely. It's a combination of factors. One, the interest should be there. Because ophthalmology is microsurgery. And you must love it. I remember it took us almost a month or a month and a half just to know how to navigate with the instruments for surgery. It's a lot of patience. If you're somebody who is impatient, I don't think you find ophthalmology exciting, because everything is minute. So the interest, first of all, should be there. And as you said, there should be incentives, motivated. I remember talking to one of of course, I had my residency training at the University of Nairobi. So I was talking
Kenya.
to Nairobi, Kenya, exactly. And at that time, it's a WHO regional training center. So that's another story. Some way, somehow, I got a scholarship sponsored by the Lions Club of South Bavaria in Germany. They were trying to build capacity.
How did you get that? Ghanaian scholarship from Bavaria in Germany.
Thank you very much.
Training in Nairobi. Give me that story.
Okay.
Then.
So now, when I decided to check out ophthalmology, after checking out from pediatrics, I decided to check in with ophthalmology. Brigadier General Wusi, and I must say I'm very grateful to him. He's the Director of Medical Services, Ghana Armed Forces. Yes, and he's an ophthalmologist. So he came to the emergency. Like, this was now the general emergency. We had a general emergency and we had the various departments, yes, specialties emergency. So this was at the general emergency known as the number 1 reception then. And I had an ophthalmological case, an emergency. He was the one on call. I called him, he came in immediately, and I left everything and I was just keenly observing him. Then he asked me, are you interested in ophthalmology? I excitedly said yes. Then he said, you know what? Then I told him that I've heard there's a diploma program in Nigeria. Can I go and do it? He said, no, I want you to go and do the master's program in Nairobi.
But you already had done your medical.
Yes, but this is a specialization.
Yeah, but why would you go for a diploma in a specialization?
You know, I had heard so many stories about the specialization generally in West Africa regarding that. I felt it was too stressful, so I told him, okay, can I take a shortcut? He said, no, you can't take it.
For the lower hanging fruit.
He said, no way, you can go to Nairobi. And I asked him, how do I go to Nairobi? Then he told me there's a doctor here. He's called Dr. Kofi. He was trained in Nairobi. And again, I'll say a very big thank you to Dr. Kofi. So he had his medical education in Germany and went to do ophthalmology in Nairobi. Remember, there was a collaboration between the University of Munich, Germany, and the Department of Ophthalmology under the University of Nairobi. So they gave us equipment, they give you consumables, so you don't have to stress. Everything is available for you as a trainee. And they even they give you a stipend as well. So it was very good news. Dr. Kofi started going about it, wrote to his superiors in Germany and informed them that I have a young lady here who wants to do ophthalmology.
There's an interesting story in there. So essentially what we are saying is, even to look after ourselves for our own health and wellness in Africa, we still have to wait for the gifts of Europe.
To be honest with you, I don't think we always have to wait for the gifts. It's about prioritizing. If we prioritize,
yeah, but if we had prioritized, there'd be no need to take gifts. I mean, a mother who can feed her children is not waiting for somebody to bring her children lunch.
Again,
so if the equipment had been purchased and was there, sitting there and being used in Africa, there'll be no need for some foreign country to bring us the aid.
And believe me, ophthalmic equipment are very expensive. They are in tens of thousands of dollars.
But we buy cars in tens of thousands of dollars for the people who choose to service.
You're right. So again, it boils down to priorities. So
I want to say thank you to those agencies abroad,
yes,
that are kind enough to give equipment to Africa, and also to remind them of some of their people who also came and stole from Africa.
And interestingly, these are not even agencies. That's a group of ophthalmologists.
Whoa.
Yes.
Professionals just like yourself.
Yes, professionals just like me. And they are just a group of ophthalmologists who have decided that we want to build capacity for Africa. We've been there, we know it. So I used to call my class an AU class. Somalia, Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, Malawi, Zambia. The list is endless. Seychelles. So you have, and of course it's interesting because you have all that network. Yes, and so we were all in the program.
So what did you have to do to go on the program? Did you write an exam? Did you go for an interview? Did you apply? What did you do?
I just applied. He put in a word. So once the University of Nairobi got my transcripts, etc., passed it on to the ophthalmology departments. They looked at it. They were satisfied. Currently, I know there's this Zoom calls, but those times there was no Zoom. Yes, so he couldn't have a call with me, but I just needed to fill in some forms. And once the ophthalmological group in South Bavaria had assured them that they'll take care, they'll fund everything, I was good to go.
Now tell me the story about moving from 30, was it 37 at the time? Moving from 37 to Nairobi.
I was looking forward to coming back to 37, but They didn't give me a letter to that effect. I wanted to take a leave of absence or even leave without pay, but I think that time they also needed doctors. They had doctors, and they didn't see why they had just started a program in Ghana, our own Ghana college. They didn't see the need probably why I should leave. So I had to resign. So you can imagine resigning, going to Nairobi without a salary back at home. I needed to depend on a stipend. And the stipend, that's why it's called a stipend. It's small. And then I was also expecting my first child.
Oh, you had already married while you were
Yes, I was married. Then when we got married, I think 6 months or 7 months later, I had to leave for Nairobi.
Whoa.
And I was pregnant. So I think I was about 3 months pregnant with my first child.
So you went with heavy luggage.
And it was a time of very mixed emotions. Yes, leaving your husband, not knowing you come and meet him, still single. Still married to you, exactly. So, but I always thank God for my mother. She encouraged me, my late mother. Yes, she encouraged me.
What's her name?
Stella Kwabia Asiedu. Mama Kwabia, as I affectionately called her. Unfortunately, she was laid to rest on the 25th of October last year.
Yeah, so rest in peace. So you get to Nairobi. What was the reception like there? Did they look like us? Did we look like them?
They looked like us, but the culture shock was overwhelming.
Tell me.
Difference between East Africans and West Africans, vast.
Whoa. What are
They are
they?
very chatty. They're a little bit more conservative. Yes, and I got there. I'm not too comfortable in very cold environments, and I got there at a time when it was one of their coldest seasons. And being pregnant, not knowing anyone, I was in a hostel. First of all, somebody got me a hostel. There was another Ghanaian there, but she could not accommodate me, so I had to be in the hostel for a while. And adapting to the food too was something else. Generally, the culture shock was, and then Nairobi at that time, Ghana, Accra, I felt was much safer, because the first thing my friends in the department told me was, you have to be careful. Nairobi is not like Accra. Crime rate is completely at a different level.
Crime rate?
Yes.
At the time?
Yes, at that time. Told me that you have to be careful. I remember my friend Kenyan telling me that even the way you walk shows that you are not a Kenyan. They walk very briskly. And I answer your to pasa. So we tend to just take our time and walk. She said, no, the way you walk even shows that you have to learn to walk briskly. You have to learn to be very focused. You can't go around asking for directions. It gives you away as a foreigner.
And that makes you prone to crime?
Yes.
Or,
somebody just deciding to be taking advantage. Imagine somebody.
What do they do? Snatch bags? What do they do?
Snatch bags? No, it's not just about snatching bags, but sometimes your ATM card, if it's on you, you can be taken at gunpoint to an ATM, and it's done very nicely, I was told. But now, when I compare Nairobi to Accra, I think Accra is about the same. Crime rate is getting there, yes. So that was it, but I enjoyed it. My classmates were very supportive. Especially
because
when
you're pregnant.
My tummy started growing. I remember when I went into labor, I called my classmate Ethiopian, Emil. He was the closest, and I felt like also taking a hamburger. So I told him, get me a hamburger, and I think I'm in labor. So he escorted me to the clinic. We went there, he was reading his notes, and then, interestingly, he was in the clinic at that time. That day I had taken the day off. I told her I wasn't feeling too well. So he was in the clinic. And then he goes to the chief resident. The chief resident is a final year student. He's in charge of all those who are specializing. So from first year to third year. So he's the chief resident. And he goes to me and tells him that I need to leave this clinic. And he told him that that's a heavy clinic. How can you leave? Then he tells him that no, Asiedu is in labor. And he said it so emphatically. So when I got back, it was a joke in the department. They asked me, we didn't know that Mercedes was your attendant ops gynae. Because the way he said you are in labor, That means probably he was
What
coming
was
to
he
deliver.
specializing in?
He was also specializing in ophthalmology.
Oh, okay.
And I had my year group they were amazing. We looked out for each other. And I remember he asked me, do you have a backpack? He held me. We went to see the doctor. The doctor said, no, you have to get some more things. I have to admit you immediately. Then he called another group of ladies, Kenyans, that no, you have to drive her to the hospital. They all came with me. And I remember when I had my baby, even my lecturers, right from the morning at the hospital, they came in to come and see me before going to work. And it wasn't the same hospital. It wasn't in Kenyatta Hospital. It was at another hospital known as the Mata Hospital. And I mean, I really felt at home. I didn't have family there. My mother had not yet come to Nairobi. She came a couple of days later. And let me tell you one thing, interestingly, on my first night with the baby, now a few of the lecturers were asking, who is going to sleep with you? Because you're a first-time mother. What will you do? And then they suggested that one of my mates, my colleagues, a Somali lady, should come and sleep with me. She had never given birth, so the two of us, inexperienced with the baby. As we say it in Akan dialect, we had it. And then strangely, my baby started gasping for breath that night when I brought him home. It's as if he was choking on his own saliva. She looked on helpless. We turned the baby upside down.
You didn't know what to do?
We didn't know what to do. We started trying to draw the thick saliva from his. Very strange.
How were you doing that?
I was using I wrapped a towel, trying to draw it out. She was hitting the baby's back because we knew that if anything, by the time we rushed to the emergency, probably would have lost the baby. But the baby settled and we passed the rest of the night uneventfully, thank God. So you can imagine.
Wow.
And she was really traumatized as well. But she managed to spend a couple of days with me before my mother finally came in.
The whole description of your pregnancy and childbirth in Nairobi brings to mind a concept that Sir Sam Jonah talks to me about very often, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is South African for I am because you are, yes. Where the community looks out for one another.
That's right.
And wherever we are, if we can practice some Ubuntu, we all can rise and shine.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing, and tears always well up in my eyes when I think that I thought I didn't have family there, but my classmates, my consultants, they rallied around me. And
when we come back right here on Master of the Game, we will talk more with Dr. Wendoline Owusua Asiedu-Twum. We'll be talking about how she got through her course in Nairobi and where she went from there, and why now in Ghana she focuses a lot on working for the underserved communities. Right after this.
Excellent furnishing in a real estate business is a great deal for survival. My struggles as a young estate developer were cut short when I discovered Fernart Ghana. With quality furniture made from the finest woods and amazing after-sale service, Fernart Ghana changed my story with every single home I built. It's a one-stop shop that serves the interests of clients with a variety of living room and dining sets, solid wood kitchen installations, wardrobes, doors, cabinets, beds, pergolas, floor parquets, and many other wooden products that will last a lifetime. With Fernart Ghana, all clients are offered the opportunity to customize furniture to their specifications, and the smile on their faces says it all. Thanks to Fernart, now your home can look beautiful with furniture that would last for generations. Visit Fernart Ghana today and share my story. Locate us at Yaniba Estate, Osu, Accra, or call 0303 966085 or 055 278 4097. Think wood, think Fernart.
Whatever you start, you must complete. For if you will not complete one task and start another, there's a great likelihood you're not going to complete the other either. So this fine young lady who studied to be an ophthalmologist in Ghana went to Nairobi. and started a program there so she would become a master in her line of work and come back home to serve. How did you get on with it in Nairobi?
I'll say the training in Nairobi is very rigorous. Sometimes I felt like embracing myself and saying that, Wendy, you've got this. You have to finish hard.
When you say rigorous, what exactly was going on?
The thing is, they are quite meticulous. I remember my first lecture. The first time I walked into the department, I looked on the notice board and I saw my name. My name with some other strange names, some I couldn't even pronounce. And they were already, the topics were already against our names for presentation. I looked at my name and I realized I was just presenting a few days' time. So I've just arrived in Nairobi. I've come to the departments to sort out a few things. And within a few days, I have a presentation. And I'm supposed to do the presentation. And when the presentation is at 8 a.m., by 7:45, the consultants are sitting there. And your phone must be on silent. They are very disciplined, honestly. And that presentation has to be well done. And those times, I didn't even have a tablet. I had to go to town and get a Samsung tablet immediately because you say anything and they go online to check immediately. Evidence-based medicine. It had to be done and done well. That was their mantra. So I quickly had to reorientate myself and stop this attitude of anything will pass and yes, or anything goes.
Nyame
No,
that's the one I can't really stand in Ghana. Nyame.
So I had to.
When you see Nyame,
I had to reorientate myself and adjust immediately. And they expected a lot from us. Even if you are not the presenter during a presentation, they can call you at random amongst the students. What do you think about this? You should have read on it. The fact that Wendy is presenting does not mean that my coach shouldn't read on the topic very well, in depth. And you needed to intersperse your presentations with videos, make it very interesting. You couldn't just bring only text. They could easily ask you to go and reorganize yourself and come and present again. But what I liked most was the practical aspect. You know, almost every 2 weeks, we used to call it safaris. It's not to the safari park, I wish, but we'll travel outside Nairobi. Travel about 6 hours. So that's where the concept of outreaches. I learned all about the concept of outreaches. And that's the same thing I'm trying to replicate with Hopeful Sites. I think we'll come to Hopeful Sites. Yes, we'll come to Hopeful Sites later. So we go out there, and usually, for some strange reason, I was always tagged with going to Garissa. Garissa is a predominantly Somali society. So you go there and there. KKD, you get there, and in fact, you can count hundreds of people lined up. They're sitting on the ground, waiting for us to do surgeries.
On the eye?
Yes, on the eye.
What's the problem there? Why so many?
There was no ophthalmologist there. It's a 6-hour drive from Nairobi to Garissa. And they didn't have an ophthalmologist there. So they pile up the cases. So when we go there, and what's the safari entailed? 2 first-year students, 2 second-year students, 2 third-year students, and then 2 consultants. So we go out there, and immediately we unpack. We don't even have lunch. We first start surgery. Some are running the clinic. We go straight to theater, and everything is fast. Then we take a break. We come for lunch, and after lunch, you go back to do surgeries. Sometimes we could stay for about 5 days.
And the surgeries are being handled by the consultants and the third-year students?
Not only third years. By second year, you should have started surgeries. So, second year students will start. The first years were given the injections. You know, you have to be given a local anesthetic injection into the eye. So, right there, they teach you how to give the injection.
Into the eye?
Yes. Just beneath. You don't go into the eyeball.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
you navigate in such a way that you give it into the muscles.
So which part of the eye are we looking at just
Yes,
beneath
so
here?
just beneath here, you feel there's a bone here. So
Yeah.
we say you palpate the bone,
Yeah.
then you make sure you just give it just above the bone.
So it doesn't
Yes,
prick the
then
ball itself.
go through the eyeball. Yes, there's a technique for it. You have to even draw the syringe back to just to make sure you're not even in a vessel, a blood vessel. So right there and then you are trained to do it. So you keep on giving the injections, and if it's not a good block, the patient is not, the patient is still in pain, that means that you didn't give a good block.
And God forbid, but if somebody penetrates the eyeball, what's that?
Interestingly and enough, we never had any case like that, because by the time they are doing it, you are very cautious. You see, there are a number of instructions. If you penetrate the eyeball, you ask the patients to look up. So you give the patients some instructions, and the patients, once the patient is able to carry it out, you know that you are not in the eyeball, and that's when you inject. So yeah, you do it meticulously, definitely. Then second years are doing surgeries, and the consultants are just going around observing. Are you okay? Are you good? Is there any challenge here? And then third years are also doing the more complicated cases. So it's got to do with patient selection. So during that time, you learn how to select the patients. Case also. You can't go for a case that's too complicated for your level.
So the more competent ones go for the more complicated cases.
The more complicated cases, exactly. And that will normally be the third year students. And they are just observing you. You do your surgeries, they come around, they correct you. Even if you have a complication, they help you, they sit down with you, they do it, help you, then you take over again. Because they let you know that as a surgeon, you are not perfect. You can have a complication, but then how you manage it is what is most important.
It's glaucoma month now all over the world. What exactly causes glaucoma?
Again, with glaucoma, we don't say there's one particular cause, and we don't generalize it to as a cause per se. We talk about risk factors. First and foremost, if you want to talk about risk factors, and before I even proceed, what is glaucoma? First of all, we describe glaucoma as a group of eye conditions that damages the optic nerve with time. And if we talk about the optic nerve is a nerve that runs from the eye right into the brain. It's at the occiput, the back of your head. So that nerve gradually dies off when you have glaucoma. It's weakened, and that's what helps you to see. You know, there's there's communication between the eye and the brain. When you see something, that's an impulse is sent to the brain, or a message is sent to the brain, and the brain interprets it. And that's the nerve which connects the eye to the brain. So if that nerve is not functioning properly, then it means the eye cannot see.
What can you do to keep that nerve healthy?
As I said, there are risk factors. So even being an African, all those of black ancestry are more prone to developing glaucoma. That's what studies have shown.
Says who?
That's what studies have shown.
Says who?
That's it. That's the harsh reality. I'm sorry.
I know they are Minjindi.
Oh no, it's true. The studies, and let me tell you, and the studies have also shown that Ghana bears the second highest burden of glaucoma cases worldwide.
After who?
After St. Lucia and Barbados. And mind you, these St. Lucia and Barbados, they are descendants of slaves from West Africa.
West Africa, yeah.
And it's believed to be more of the Gold Coast.
Is this something to do with Galamsey?
Okay, no. But that's when the genetic predisposition comes in. So it's believed that there's some kind of gene. And still there's a lot of studies ongoing trying to find out what's all about. But there's a genetic predisposition.
So our glaucoma may arise out of our genealogy.
Possibly, definitely. And even having first-degree relatives. By first-degree relatives, I mean father, mother, siblings, it puts you automatically at a 45% risk of developing glaucoma. So when there's a family history, exactly.
So there is this, I'm going to come more into glaucoma, but there is a very common case in Ghana. In the local language, Akan, you say, ete esi weniso. You know, when you have that thing where it's like this white coloration is on the pupil. What exactly is that? What causes that?
Ete is cataract. And that's how ete is the local name for cataract.
Yeah.
Cataract mostly comes with age. As one grows older, not only age, but mostly it's age. And then there are also disease conditions like diabetes that puts you more at risk of developing cataracts. You know what happens in diabetes is that because the sugar levels are high in the blood system, the lens tends to also absorb more water. You know, wherever you have high levels of sugar, more water draws towards that area. So the lens in the eye, we have a natural lens in the eye. When I talk about lens, I'm not talking about the lens in your glasses, your spectacles. Yes, I'm talking about the natural lens in the eye, which helps us to see. And once it absorbs a lot of water, it begins to become opaque. It begins to become much whiter, denser. It's no more like a mirror that is supposed to be transparent. It begins to become denser, and that's when you develop cataracts. Then when you have trauma, do you know that's a slap to the face? Sorry about that. Trauma to the eye can cause cataracts. A slap to the face. Yes. Down the line you can develop cataracts. So it's very important that we take very good care of our eyes. We can't take things for granted at all when it comes to the eye.
They say the only thing that causes more blindness than cataract is religion. But cataract may cause blindness. But my understanding these days is it's quite easy to do surgery for cataract.
Yes, cataract causes reversible blindness, whilst glaucoma causes irreversible blindness.
The cataract is small boy.
Cataract, why should I hear small sound?
No, but reversible blindness.
Reversible blindness, yes. Once there is no other issue on the retina, then we are good to go.
How do you get rid of cataract?
Through surgery.
What, you pick something gently?
Small. We have different kinds of surgery, but the main ones now are the small incision cataract surgery, where I make an incision, I cut. So I tell my patients, sometimes patients tell me that, Dr. so you're just going to wash the eye. I said, no, I have to cut with a knife. We have special knives. Yes, we try, we chat. And I tell them that the way you have to cut it. No, you have to explain to them so that they appreciate the gravity of what you are going to do. And it even helps with the post-operative care. Yes. When you trivialize it, they also trivialize the post-operative care.
So you actually cut. Is it part of the retina? No.
Cut the sclera, the white part, the coat of the eye.
Okay.
The eye is coated by the sclera. So I cut it. I dissect the conjunctiva. I cut it. I think I gave him a photo of me doing surgery. You cut the eye, and then you go into the eye. You take out the cataracts, then you replace it with...
See how audacious you've become talking about cutting and going into...
I love it. So that's my field, that's my passion. And it's so beautiful. The next day, the patient is able to see, and they're so happy. Especially if the patient has bilateral cataracts, and you operate one eye, and the next day they are seeing, they're so happy. They're very appreciative. They keep on saying, Doctor, thank you. And some of them have become very good friends. They become like family just through the surgery, operating on their eyes, and improving their quality of life.
You did some cataract surgery in Kenya?
So many. And even in Zambia as well. I had my second phase of surgical training In the training program is such that they also want you to have a lot of exposure.
Oh, that's you operating.
No, this one is a recent outreach.
Oh, in Ghana?
Yes, just on the 24th of December last year.
Where did you do this?
At Edukrom, during the Audra Festival.
You went and set up a clinic there?
Set up, examine the eyes, those who needed glasses. That's part of the activities of Hopeful Sights Foundation. That's all. And it's all out of pocket.
And you are the founder of
Yes.
Hopeful Sights Foundation.
Yes.
You did it all by yourself with the help of?
I did it all by myself. I decided that who is creating a lot of awareness? We need the awareness, especially though Hopeful Sights it's embracing all kinds of eye conditions. I'm focusing on glaucoma because we do not make so much noise about glaucoma. After Glaucoma Week, what next? Do we wait for another year? Is it even everyone who hears what we are talking about during Glaucoma Week? How many people have the opportunity to be screened? So that's where Hopeful Sights comes in. We want to be able to do all year round screening. Not only in Accra. If we have the funds, we'll replicate it in the other regions.
So you need support from corporate Ghana then? Because if you're going to be going from region to region, from town to town, from village to village, whilst you're willing to use your expertise for free, somebody must help to transport you there and help you set up the clinic. Is there a line for charity that people can call to make donations?
Yes, we have lines. Let me get it for you. And even when you have, and apart from Hopeful Sights, it's not just about screening programs. We have a clinic at North Legon where we consult. So you can also come. So when we make the diagnosis during the screening programs, we can see you in the clinic as well. So we don't just refer you to any clinic. You can come to the clinic, our own clinic, and then sometimes you need further tests. We can all carry.
Where in North Legon is your clinic?
So North Legon Hospital. Yes, we have a setup there.
North Legon Hospital. Where exactly is it? This area? Legon, no? I can see I'm a Yedu Ashama. And baby, home crumble who says be in Legon, but Obi more address no so East Legon. I probably want now you do Ashama.
No. This is actually not Legon.
Okay.
Not Legon. And not Legon. So here you are crying. When you get onto the Hatcher Road, the first 10 from Atomic Junction, the first 10 on your right takes you to North Legon Hospital.
Fantastic. I have a property in that area, so
okay.
I should come and check out the clinic one of these days.
Yes.
So cataract is the one that is reversible.
Yes.
Glaucoma can lead to irreversible blindness.
That is if not managed on time.
What treatments, what therapies, or what medication do you give for glaucoma?
Once you're diagnosed, we start with medical therapy. We start with the eye drops. First, sometimes you just start with a single eye drop. If the pressures are not doing too well, the eye pressure. And you see, with glaucoma, the only factor that we can modify, the only modifiable risk factor is the pressure, the intraocular pressure, the pressure inside the eye. When we talk about pressure in the eye, it's different from the pressure in the body. So when you tell somebody that you have pressure, the pressure is high on your eye, they tell you that no, my pressure is not high. The last time I went to my general doctor, he said my pressure was fine. You always have to qualify. Yes, exactly, the blood pressure. But this time when you qualify it, you let them know that this is the intraocular. That means the eye, inside the eye. Let me give you a little bit of the physiology of the eye. I wouldn't bore you with medical terms, I promise. So I want the viewers to remember that the eye, when you touch your eyeball, you can just touch your eyeball. When you touch it, it's firm. It's not soft. It is the dynamics of a fluid flowing in the eye, known as the aqueous humor. So God has made it in a way that there's a factory. I'll call it a factory, the ciliary body that manufactures this fluid. And the rate of inflow should be equal to the rate of outflow. So it's always churning in the water. The water is being recycled. It comes in, it flows out. But what happens in glaucoma is that the rate of outflow is less than the rate of inflow. So there's a pressure buildup, and the eye cannot accommodate it. And it is this pressure which gradually damages the optic nerve. So there are many factors that leads to the pressure being high. Sometimes the outflow is a little blocked. When it happens that way, some of the drugs, the eye drops that we use, sort of enhances an alternative outflow, yes, and lowers the pressure. Whilst sometimes we need surgery.
And when you talk of the outflow, where is this liquid flowing out to?
Within the same eyeball, outside, it just flows through what we call, there's an angle that it flows out through, and then you have it going to where we call the trabecular meshwork. It flows. The trabecular meshwork is like a sieve. That's why it's called a meshwork. And sometimes it gets clogged. Sometimes there are some people, they keep on having inflammation. The eye is continuously red. So the body has its own cells that it produces to fight some of these inflammations. And the residue gets into the trabecular meshwork, it clogs it, and then now the fluid the aqueous humor cannot flow freely through this meshwork. I had to say sieve, you have a sieve, it's clogged. When you put anything into it, it doesn't, even fluid does not flow as much as you expect it to flow. So that's what happens with, sometimes in glaucoma. And then we also have even children who are born with glaucoma. Sometimes it's due to underdevelopment of these structures. It didn't develop well. So then again, they have to have surgery.
What would cause a child's eye not to develop well?
It's multifactorial. During pregnancy...
I hope smoking or alcohol is not one of those.
That has not yet been confirmed. Of course, smoking alcohol can result in certain conditions like fetal alcohol syndrome, where your child is born with certain deformities because of alcohol consumption. And these deformities occur very early in pregnancy, even sometimes before you realize that you are pregnant as a woman.
Oh.
Yes. So what we call the first trimester, the first 3 months, some of these anomalies occur within the first 8 weeks of pregnancy. Can imagine. So a lot of things come into play when it comes to the development of the fetus. So anything that's affected the development can lead to some of the development of some of these structures. A child is born with glaucoma, and a baby is born with glaucoma, and that child or that baby needs surgery to save the eye. If we do not operate, the baby will lose the vision. Then we also have it. And in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, Africa in generally, research has shown that glaucoma starts earlier than our Caucasian counterparts. So whilst they are looking at 50 years and above, we are looking at 40 years. And even now, we are advocating that right from in your 20s, you should be screened for glaucoma, especially with those who are high risk. And by high risk, you know that in Ghana, there are certain areas, a study was done, and in certain areas, out of every 100 people, 9 of them has glaucoma.
Which area is this?
There was a Kwasi South study that was done, and that was what. Then there's also the Mid-Volta study that was done, and so it shows 7%, 8%, so that's what shows that Ghana has a significant burden. So we must act and act now.
What is it that made you say, now my course is done? Unlike many who finish a course and decide to reside where they studied and work, I'm coming home to Ghana. But then even after coming home to Ghana, I'm going to still further my studies elsewhere and come back home to Ghana again. Give me the story.
I've always loved Ghana.
I love Ghana too.
I love Ghana.
Mama, what's now, baby? You're over 29 years.
Okay, that's why I've always loved Ghana. I love my country. I remember when I was in medical school, when most of my mates were writing, some of my mates, especially my roommate, was writing exams to go and to further her studies abroad. I always used to tell myself I'll stay in Ghana. I love Ghana, but I'd love to practice well, practice as if I'm living abroad. Yes, because over there, because of medical legal issues, you have to be on points. But I decided that I'll stay in Ghana, but I'm going to make sure I practice well. So going to Nairobi, let me tell you, there was an incident. I told you I went to Zambia for my second phase of surgical training. I was with Dr. Asiwumi. So and we used to travel about 12 hours to go and do surgeries. So again, it really improved my surgical competence. Then when I was in Zambia, Victoria Falls is in Zambia, partly in Zambia and Zimbabwe. They share it, sort of. So I really wanted to go and see Victoria Falls. And I remember traveling 15 hours by bus. Fortunately, we traveled mostly through the night, 2 drivers. So I'd gone to do surgeries in a place called Nakonde. It's the border town with Tanzania. I took the opportunity to also visit Tanzania then. A friend, a senior colleague who was residing in Lusaka told me that, Wendy, if you want to go and see Victoria Falls, I can just get to Lusaka, which is the capital city. I'll drive you another 4 or 5 hours to Victoria Falls. So I traveled 15 hours to Lusaka, and then we went to Livingstone. Then when we went to Livingstone, in fact, I didn't know he had spoken to the medical director, the ophthalmologist there, that I'll see if we can talk to this lady so that she relocates to Zambia after training. Because he needed someone. It was enticing, but again, I looked at it and I told myself, I don't think I'm being fair to my husband. Immediately we got married, I left him 6 months down the line. Then now, after that, I come back and I just told him that, pack your bags, let's go to Zambia. And he told me, no, we'll make sure your husband also finds a job here. We are prepared to help you settle down. But of course, again, I felt I needed to be in Ghana. I just want to come back home. So that was it. And
the push and pull of love and money.
Love and money, yes, of course, it's there. Passion alone does not pay bills. You know that.
And bills alone and their payments do not make a life.
Yeah, right there. So again, that's when, and I also noticed, and also realized that my parents, I'm a child of their old age. My siblings are quite way older than me. And I always wanted to be close with them, just close to them. Now, dear, you be me yana say you be free me say sebe me mami free. Muna ebi be 3 years. For 3 years, I've not seen her. Or my father is very unwell, and because I knew they were growing older, and so that was something that kept on running through my mind, and I felt I should stay around. My siblings, my older siblings, were out of the country. Then I think one of them had finally come back, but 2 of them were still out. So if I also relocate, I don't think I'll be too fair to them.
So tell me about the decision making to move back and how you moved back to Ghana. And then when you moved back, how you were received and then started your enterprise.
When I first moved back to Ghana, as I told you, all our consumables were being sent from Germany. So we have these disposable drips, so that when you are doing surgery, it seeps into the bag. When I was coming, I had a whole bag. This Ghana must go bags. I had a whole pack, and it was from my sponsors. Even for surgeries, my sponsors made sure I had all the consumables. They'll send them from Germany. I had everything, the knives, everything. But I realized with excess luggage, of course I had something for repatriation, but my luggage was too much, and I decided to leave those ones. I arrived in Ghana, and to my uttermost shock, my first surgery, it was a cloth drip. And we use fluid to wash. After you've taken out your cataract, you use fluid to sort of rinse the remnants of whatever is left in the eye. And if you have the cloth drip, sometimes it seeps, the water seeps, and if you don't take care, your scrubs, even drenched. depending on how much water you are using to rinse, in quote, rinse out, depending on the residue cortex left in the eye. That was when I realized I'd made a very grave mistake. Why didn't I bring all these drapes? I just gave it out.
We didn't have the medical supplies?
We didn't have those supplies then. Currently, we do have them. But this is in 2011, 2012. And it was out of reach.
Priorities.
Priorities. So we didn't have them. And when I also got here, I realized that certain equipment that I was using in Nairobi, we didn't have them. Most of them had broken down.
You're telling me that the medical care system in Nairobi was ahead of Ghana?
We're ahead of Ghana then. We're ahead of Ghana. And when you look at the training program now in Nairobi, they are using simulators.
Whoa.
Yes, because after COVID, going out for outreaches became a problem. Just after COVID, you couldn't send the students out for outreaches. But so they have simulators. So students are the simulators. The consultant is watching on the screen. I'm so impressed.
Do we have simulators now?
Not in our teaching programs. And that is where it involves, I don't know how they do it, but I'm sure they also have some funding. It's not primarily from the government, I'll say, but they also have some funding. So it's about collaborative efforts. That is where a lot of collaboration, because there are foundations out there who are prepared to invest.
So my doctor friends say they're not interested in politics, and I say you are a political animal. If the politicians make bad policies, they affect you and they affect your patients. As a doctor, how does it feel when you find that we cannot even account for the COVID funds that the nation received?
I don't like being dragged into politics, but of course...
This is not politics, this is thievery. Because if we have received funds that we should be using for helping the sick and the needy, and we can't account for them, that's not politics. That's thievery. And I think every human being, irrespective of your profession, must be bothered by thievery.
It's sad and it's disappointing. Because even as doctors who are at the forefront, I didn't have any protective clothing. I didn't have any protective.
You bought your own?
No, I just had my face mask. That was all.
Oh, my sister, who's a clinic manager in London, packed quite a bit of protective gear that she bought and sent to her friends in Ghana.
So it was just my face mask. That was it. So what you are talking about, it's very sad. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. And sometimes I look on the receipts and I'm wondering why I'm still paying COVID levy in the supermarkets. I don't know why I should still be paying for COVID levy.
When even what we receive, we can't account for. It's disheartening. But when we come back, there's more to talk about with Dr. Wendoline Owusua Asiedu-Twum, Okuapi Nibaba, who has learned to do good for people who have eye problems. Medical specialist, surgical specialist of the eye. Right after this.
Excellent furnishing in a real estate business is a great deal for survival. My struggles as a young estate developer were cut short when I discovered Fenart Ghana. With quality furniture made from the finest woods and amazing after-sale service, Fenart Ghana changed my story with every single home I built. It's a one-stop shop that serves the interests of clients with a variety of living room and dining sets, solid wood kitchen installations, wardrobes, doors, cabinets, beds, pergolas, floor parquets, and many other wooden products that will last a lifetime. With Fenart Ghana, all clients are offered the opportunity to customize furniture to their specifications, and the smile on their faces says it all. Thanks to Fernat, now your home can look beautiful with furniture that would last for generations. Visit Fernat Ghana today and share my story. Locate us at Yaniba Estate, Osu, Accra, or call 0303 966085 or 055 278 4097. Think wood, think Fernat.
On Master of the Game, my name is Darkwah, Kwasi Darkwah, and my special guest is Dr. Wendoline Owusua Asiedu-Twum, ophthalmologist who runs Hopeful Sights, a charity that does outreaches to help people all over Ghana, especially the underserved communities. Today, however, I want to send a special shout out to a very special younger brother of mine, a great actor, a fine lecturer, a good promoter of Ghana's culture, and his beautiful wife, Mr. Ajete Anan and Mrs. Elom Anna. You are celebrating so many years of being together as man and wife, and this special day is for you. I wish you long life in love and vitality, in wisdom and dignity, in beauty and sincerity, and peace and prosperity from all of us here at Master of the Game and Class Media Group. And now back to Dr. Owusua. Owusua, how does Mom call you? Or when she was here with us, how did she call you?
I think she used to fondly refer to me as Major because I was named after her father.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, her father is Owusu. And I was named after him, Owusua.
And
so she used to call me Major, or Ediomi, since I'm her youngest child, or Miketri. Yes, when she really wants my attention, or I've been naughty, she wants to reprimand me, then she goes, I'm Owusua. And I know that I have to set up. I'm Owusua.
And how did Dad call you?
Owusua. Yes.
And your siblings?
Yes, my siblings. Owusua as well. Ama.
Where did you start school?
Where?
Where did you start school in Ghana?
Good. My father used to be the director for Pfizer, a pharmaceutical company, West Africa, excluding Nigeria. So we were first in Accra. Then at a point he was transferred to Kumasi to go and head agricare, which is involved in livestock, feed, etc. So I started my basic nursery school at Nicolette Nursery. It's at East Cantonments here.
East Cantonments here in Accra.
Yes,
and then after that?
We're living at Palm Grove Estates, near Palm Wine Junction. Then when we went to Kumasi, I continued at the University Primary School in Kumasi. Then we came back to Accra and I went to the Richard School. From Richard School, I went...
Richard?
Yes, Richard. So I'm a Region. Then from Richard School, I went to Wesley Girls High School.
What were your favorite things to do in your teenage years?
One, I was a bookworm. I loved reading. As training nurse, I was such a talkative in class. And my handwriting was not the best. So that's my handwriting.
Wesley Pa.
Wesley and share handwriting.
Wesley,
no, but I'd already formed the habit. Even Richard was supposed to write in a particular cursive. Cursive, that's what it was. But I just couldn't do it. I remember when I was in class 4, for a whole term, I was the only one in the class writing with pencil. All others were writing with pen because my teacher didn't understand why she should let me write with pen when my handwriting was that bad. She used to tell me that my handwriting was like...
Shaking, scratching?
Thank you. So off it's a form. That's what she used to say. My only consolation was that whatever I put on paper was good, very good. So I was a smart student, but then I was a talkative in class. I remember almost every week she would change my sitting position. If I sat by the quiet guy in class, by the end of the week, the guy was talking. Well,
What did you
very
talk
outgoing.
about?
I could talk about anything. I was very good at sports. I could talk about sports with the boys. Could talk about wrestling. Of course, now I'm not interested in wrestling. At a point, I was playing tennis. Well, the students of Richard, we were involved in a program where we could go to the Accra Lawn Tennis Club then to play tennis. So that was when my interest in tennis came about. Then, what again was I doing? I was a very good athlete. Yes.
Which sports? Which
100
race?
meters,
100
200 meters.
Oh,
I was
fantastic.
very good. At a point, they were preparing me. They wanted me to even be involved to be enrolled in a program where they would train for youth for some kind of African games. But I had to focus on my studies.
And this is at Wesley Girls.
No, this was at Ray Church.
Ray Church?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, so I needed to focus on my studies because I needed to make the grades to go to Wesley Girls. Wesley Girls, when I went to Wesley Girls, I think I withdrew from a number of activities. I was supposed to be an athlete. At a point, I just withdrew. I was doing very well. I used to go for intercolleges, what they call intercol, etc.
Why did you withdraw?
It was stressful combining academics and the sports, because sometimes they'll take you out of school to go and train elsewhere at the University of Cape Coast campus. You come back
Exhausted.
And as soon as you come back, sometimes by the time you come back, they've taken supper. Supper has already been served. You quickly go in for supper, and then you have to rush for prep. That's the evening studies for 2 hours. You are so sleepy, you are so tired. At a point, I just decided, is it for sports or is it for the academics? Because I needed to also make the grades to make it to medical school. So after Wesley Girls High School, I gained admission to the School of Medical Sciences, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And that was where I read.
And that's where you studied medicine.
That's it. I also wanted to go back to Kumasi. I used to miss Kumasi so much because, don't forget, during my formative years, my younger years, I was in Kumasi when we came back.
Here is a question I learned to ask after many years of living abroad. Because a great teacher impacts a child in a way that even a parent may not be able to. Who was your greatest teacher at medical school?
Okay, when it comes to pre-clinicals, we have the clinicals and we have the pre-clinicals. So pre-clinicals is your first 4 years. You'll be on campus, then clinicals, you go to you relocate to Komfanochi, the teaching hospital. So pre-clinicals, I would say, is the late Jacob Plangeru. He passed during COVID. Plangeru.
Okay.
And then Dr. Mrs. Kwasi Abedu. She taught me histology. And histology is more of microscopic work. And she was very, very patient. And I think I loved it. She understood the level at which everyone was. So she even put us in groups so that we could feel more comfortable. And I think I loved it. And then when it comes to clinicals, yes, Dr. Dobe, my lecturer in pediatrics, he made it very interesting. And I liked the roundtable discussions. Usually after a ward round, he will take us to his office and he'll provide, one of us was tasked with buying the biscuits, the drinks, and we'll sit, after being in the ward, we will sit with him in his office with the biscuits and drinks and have a discussion. And I think that was at a point when some lecturers will keep you at a distance. Things, I believe, have improved, but sometimes some lecturers will keep you at a distance, but he embraced us. And he made us feel very comfortable. And one thing that he always used to tell us was, medical school is tough. Don't strive to do your best, but don't think that at all costs you have to sweep all the awards. You may not sweep the awards, but strive to be a very dedicated doctor. And he said, patients do not look out for the doctor who sweats the most awards. They look out for the doctor who has empathy, the doctor who is committed to their work.
That's interesting.
Yes.
That's
Dr. Dobe,
interesting.
I think, I don't know if Dr. Dobe is on retirement now, but I really appreciate that. Yes.
Now tell me about the transition from university into work. I want to compare back then with now.
Again, it's a rude awakening. You report as a house officer, that's as a doctor who has just completed training. You are put at the emergency. And I always say medicine is apprenticeship.
You got to watch somebody do it
You've got
and
to
learn
work-
from them
yes,
as they
and
do
learn
it.
from it. And you know, in medical school, you've not had so much of practical experience. So you're put there, you're on call. And let me give you one scenario. In pediatrics, there was a nurse who was in the neonatal units, and she was so good. Do you know these neonates, fresh babies, even how to set a line for them? Their veins are very tiny, and whenever you were called, and she was not the one on duty, I think we used to call her Sister Mary. You panicked so much.
So what are
the
you
other
doing?
nurses-
Setting a line for a catheter? What exactly are you doing?
Yes, you have to look out for the veins and then set a line so that they could be given some intravenous medications, because they are sometimes they are preterm,
Yeah.
very, very, very tiny, so small, very frail, and you have to look for their veins, and they are crying.
And Sister Mary
Yeah.
was a master of that.
She was a master at that. So for some other nurses, you go there and they are watching you show your crutchet powers, and you're so helpless, and you're just there very frustrated, but she'll always do it, or she'll sit with you and help you. And I always tell people that, as I said, medicine is apprenticeship. You know, the first person to teach me how to pass a nasogastric tube, an NG tube, pass it through the nose into the stomach, was a nurse.
Not a doctor.
No, not a nurse, because some of the nurses are so experienced, and that's what sometimes I tell the younger doctors. Be humble. Bro, Kwasi, you just come out of school. Don't go there with shoulders raised, riding on your high horse. You are the least in the hospital. Maybe you didn't realize that. Amongst the hierarchy
At
of
that
doctors,
point, you're an apprentice.
you're an apprentice. I should cry to say be houseboy
Yeah.
or house girl. Yes, you clean up the mess. When your senior colleagues have done something, you clean up the mess. Yes, you sort it out. So we should be humble and learn from some of these paramedics. They are very experienced. They'll teach you certain techniques, because your senior colleagues are sometimes too busy. They don't engage in the very trivial. They assume you should know, but these nurses are always on the ground.
If I may interject, is this the reason why these days a lot of the nurses in America are going back to school to become nurse practitioners? Because
Exactly.
they find all that experience of theirs
Yes.
should not be sat on a small salary. So they're almost next to doctors.
Exactly, so that you can consult, because some of them, let me tell you, even as an ophthalmic surgeon, there are times that I'm doing surgery in the early days when I came back from Nairobi. I'm doing surgery and I'm struggling with something, and one of my experienced nurses assisting me will just tell me that, no, wait, let me get you this instrument. I think it will work better. Yes. Or sometimes I ask her, what do you think? So then she tells me that, doctor, I think we should rather use this instrument. It will help get the cataracts out of the eye much better, because I've seen your senior colleague use it. And so you
Fantastic.
should be humble. And that was what my mother always told me, so that you don't know everything. There's always someone who knows something more than you. So you should be ready to learn.
So, from university, your first real job was where?
37 Military Hospital,
And then after that?
University of Nairobi. Went straight.
And then when you came back to Ghana, where did you go first?
I first had a brief stint at Sight for Africa. It's a smaller clinic. Then, for just about maybe a couple of months, then I joined Emmanuel Eye Medical Center. And I was at Emmanuel Eye Medical Center for 12 years.
At what point did you become the best practice?
Oh, okay.
You won this award in 2023. Tell me about
Yes.
it, because that's how I got to know you.
Oh, So in 2020, after working with Emmanuel Eye for a while, I was made a medical director, and that was when COVID struck. It was quite tough navigating, trying to make sure the clinic kept running. We didn't lose out on our patients. We didn't lose out on revenue, but it was good. I learned a lot during that period. And during my tenure as medical director, things went on smoothly with the support of the management team, with the deputy CEO, and of course with the CEO himself, Dr. Darkwah. He was very supportive, and I'll take this opportunity to say a big thank you to him.
How did you get to win your award?
I think a patient, it was an open thing, I didn't even know about it. I think a patient put my name out there. It was just, but then when he got to know I was a medical director, I'm sure he got to know I was a medical director, he put my name out there. And the producers or the managers of the management team got in touch, got a profile. So then I had to, they put it out there. There were votes.
Exactly.
There was a voting going on, and then I hardly put anything on my status, but then now I had to put something out, and friends, etc., voted, and I got the award.
What does it take to be a good medical director?
Because as a medical director, you are the manager of the institution, and it's not only about the clinicians or your colleagues. It's about everyone, even right up to the cleaner. You have to get involved in all affairs. Make sure that even on a heavy clinic day, whilst you are consulting, you have to make sure that the patients are also comfortable. Is the queue being held up? Are patients looking dejected? Are they upset? All that comes into play. So the managerial role, the administrative role, and then as a clinician as well, it all comes into play. And for me, as a female, I was like a mother to them. And it also depends on your rapport. I think you must be approachable. You must be approachable. You have to resolve a lot of issues between the staff, etc.
In a hospital where there is ambition amongst a number of doctors, everyone with their specialization, what advice would you give the one who wants to rise to become the medical director? Because I've spoken to a few doctors and they say, look, Kwasi, I want to do my work, but me, medical director position, I don't want it. You've heard it before from some of your colleagues.
Yes,
Why do they say that?
I think there's the bureaucracies and the conspiracies involved.
Conspiracy?
Sometimes, not necessarily with Emmanuel Eye. Emmanuel Eye is a smaller unit, and it is.
But that's why I'm using a bigger setting where different specializations.
A bigger setting, I don't think it's that easy. Yes, because sometimes even some people would have wanted their own favorites to be medical directors, because of a certain rapport that they have, and maybe you are from another department. I think it's quite complicated. If I were to be in a bigger hospital, I think I will express the same sentiments. You saw me roll my eyes.
That's why people would just say, look, just get a
hospital administrator, get a hospital medical but you need a medical director also as a doctor. Yes, because even when it comes to the acquisition of consumables, if you're a surgeon, the input you make, and the novel practices, so then you can introduce and then encourage the hospital to get involved in which areas we are likely to improve our revenue output. So it's very important.
So what key advice would you give for these different specialists who are all vying to be medical director? What advice would you give them?
Put your act together and make sure that you should know that it's a daunting task. You should be ready for it. And I think you should take a course in some administrative course. You just can't. I don't think you should just plunge into it. I took this health administrative management course at GIMPA. As soon as I became a medical director, I decided to go for that course. And you learn a lot from a little bit of accounting and even managing people, how to reprimand them.
How to reprimand them?
Yeah, how to reprimand some people. And you see, you can't, it's not a one size fits all because people are of different personalities. There are times that I know that this particular member of staff is quarrelsome, has had some issue with another member of staff. When I call you to my office, my first approach is, Obia nimse, Mimi nimse, Uyo Obia Upasumje.
But you know she's quarrelsome.
Yes.
Oh,
I know you're a very peaceful
person.
person.
I said she. I should say he. But you know he is quarrelsome.
Would you say okay, say she? Man, no problem. It's okay. Especially the females. You start by, I know you're a very peaceful person. So you sort of disarm the person. So they let their guard down. And then, for that such a person who is very difficult, a little bit arrogant, you can even let them, you can push them to go and apologize to the other party. So you must know how to handle people. I think you should know about people's personalities. You should know the basic temperaments. Yes, you should know something about that so that you know how to handle people. And you should be firm, but you should be approachable.
And when it comes time to let people go, how does the medical director handle that?
It's difficult, especially if they have a certain area of key competence that is invaluable, that is an asset to the institution. But you have to know that life is a journey. We are all passing through. People will move on. You must learn to let them go willingly. And sometimes you can re-engage their services even on part-time basis. There should be that rapport. But I've realized in Ghana, sometimes when people are letting go of you, it's with bitterness. Give the person your blessing. Let them go. They'll always remember you. They'll always come back to celebrate your success. You can also go and celebrate their success story. So learn to let people go because their journey is not your journey. We are all on a particular journey and it is individualized. So let them go. Let them continue. Let them blossom. That's what I like.
And if they are the ones who are being vicious about going to, how do you deal with that?
Vicious, meaning that?
It's as though they're not going on a good note, but out of anger or out of whatever. How do you handle that as a medical director? I'm speaking of a specific field of endeavor.
Yes. I think you should resolve it before the person moves on. They should, once you are leaving, for instance, when I was moving on from Emmanuel, we had an exit meeting. And at that...
When you were leaving?
Yes. Emmanuel.
Did you give them a fair notice?
Yes, we had.
How many months notice? How many weeks notice?
Oh, you just can't leave because I'm transitioning from one place. It's like a transfer to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. So it goes through a process. So you write a letter, you talk to them because there were certain family issues. That's why I had to move on. Personal issues, so I had to move on. So then I wrote a letter, I informed my CEO. He was a little bit disappointed. I'd worked with them for 12 years.
But you gave them sufficient notice?
We gave them sufficient notice. I even
in accordance with your appointment letter, because every appointment has the correct notice.
Yes, and I couldn't leave like that because then the Ghana Health Service will also have to give a feedback if there's vacancy for me at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. So it wasn't too much of a big deal. But I guess it's when the person can just walk out. I think it's just fair that you give the employer due some notice so that they are also quite comfortable. And as you said, when employees have grievances, before they leave, no matter the level, whether it's junior level in the organization, have a roundtable discussion with them. Management should sit with them. What do you like here? What don't you like? How do you think we can improve it? Yes, let them know that they are worthy members of staff. So just let them know. Don't just let go of them, because you never know where they will go to and what will become of them. They may be in a very senior position now, and you may need their services someday. So it's very important. I still tell my children, and because my mother told me, she said, the people you encounter are like doors. They provide another avenue for you.
True.
So when you meet people, never treat them with disdain, no matter who they are. Just make sure that you handle them with care. And that's how I've always handled my patients. And it's mind-blowing the rapport I have with some of my patients. I remember I went on a trip to Germany just last August, and I stayed with the sister of one of my patients. They become like family.
That's beautiful.
And when I was on my way to the airport when I was informed my mom had passed. So I was a little bit broken, and I'd never had to organize a funeral. They rallied around me, and they were the ones to, doctor, this person, I'll get this person, we will engage this person's services to sew your mom's dress, we'll engage this, this is how you organize a funeral. They had become like my big sisters.
Fantastic.
And that's a patience. And that's only one example I'm citing. There are several cases. There are several cases like that.
I spoke to a human capital consultant barely 2 weeks ago who also advised, and I took the advice to heart. It says it takes two to tango. Sometimes some people do not want peace. You cannot force them to find peace.
Exactly.
In those instances, let them go peacefully.
Yes.
No
Exactly.
confrontation.
No confrontation.
No further discussion.
Discussions.
Let them go peacefully. For
That's true.
in good time, when they find peace, they will come back and make peace.
I love that.
And he's Indian, you know.
Yes,
he's
it's
Indian,
true.
and the way he said it with a strong Indian accent. Says sometimes some people don't want peace. Let them go peacefully.
That's very true. That's very true. There are some people who are naturally not peaceful.
Chaotic people.
Very chaotic people. I just try to navigate. I try as much as possible to avoid such people.
I avoid chaos. I
Chaos.
constantly make a conscious effort.
But sometimes you can't avoid it.
Oh, well, if it's the chaos that brings me pleasure, then I go for it. But if it doesn't,
But
I avoid it.
In our situation, there are patients who are very chaotic.
But you can't avoid those.
You can't avoid them.
That's a patient.
I remember once, let me give you this scenario. I remember once in the next consulting room, there was this altercation between a patient, a female patient.
Altercation in a hospital.
Yes. She was quite aggressive. I didn't know why. And then between one of my younger colleagues and then this patient. So then as the medical director in the next consulting room, I walked in and I said, excuse me, can I have a word with you? I'm Dr. Asiedu, I'm the medical director. Can we talk quietly in my office? No. I don't even like it when female doctors come into the...
Was that a woman?
Yes.
Oh, why do women do this to women?
You know, women were our own enemies. I was like, I just...
Did he say that? No, you didn't say that.
I didn't say that. You know, I learned to tame my tongue when I went for the health administrative management.
Yeah.
Because now as a leader, you needed to watch what you say.
Yeah.
And in this era of social media, you
Yeah.
have to be very careful. I said, no. What even annoys me is when the female doctors come in. They said, I was always being attended to by this male doctor, by this male ophthalmologist, but here he's no more here. I said, whoa, okay. I just told her that, okay, when you're at peace and you want to have a discussion, I'm always available.
So
And she
you've
walked
taken
out.
the Indian consultant's advice. You see?
Yes.
Sometimes you've got to let them be.
I just
When
let
they find peace,
peace.
they will come.
Yes. Very, very true. Very, very. I couldn't agree with him.
Look, we have something we do on this program, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Hopeful Sites, which you founded, the purpose, and your activities. But right now, you see, my director is he's a very well experienced media manager, Mr. Sami Adano. We select videos at random, and whichever one he picks, we play, and then we take your reaction to it. Let's go see it now.
My wife, when I met her, she goes, "Your whole family's using you." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "They're all using you." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Let's go to dinner, and I don't want you to pay the bill." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I always pay the bill." She's like, "But let's just not pay it one time. Let's just do it one time. I said, see what they do." And so there's like 20 of us at dinner, and she said, "We'll usually get our own checks tonight." Everybody looked at me like this at the end of the table. As I got my check, I felt really weird. But my wife Jacqueline's like, "I want to see how everybody acts." Everybody paid their bill. They got up. Nobody even gave me a hug, and they walked out. My wife goes, "This is how things have been going in your life." They say what you don't have as a kid, you crave as an adult. So I thought when I made a lot of money, I was like, dude, I'm just going to, like buy everything for everybody. And then everybody's going to love me. And then my wife's like, "Dude, you can't buy people's love."
What do you think of that?
Women. We are something else, eh?
We can buy your love, can we?
Buy your love. Yes, true. We can buy it.
But it's not just women, it's a human thing.
It's true.
Maybe women do it a little more than men, but
more.
it's a human thing.
It's a human thing.
How do you get to know people for real?
When I love psychology, sometimes when I enter a room, a group of people, I just sit quietly and observe one particular character. And from there, I draw my inferences. So later when I'm chatting with them, I tell them that, "Oh, you like this, you like this." "How did you know?" I said, "I just took an interest in you and I observed you from a distance." So that's how sometimes I observe people. Even with my own children, I don't reprimand them using the same style. Yeah, there's one of them, you reprimand her, she just freezes. She just ignores you. You have to engage her. The youngest of them, you have to engage her. We have to talk about it. I remember I was just talking with her something, then she said, "Don't change, Mommy, don't change the subjects." She's 7 years. She said, "Don't change the subjects." Because we were talking about it. I said, "Don't change." I wanted to change the subject because it was about me buying something for her. Then she says, "Don't change the subjects." So people are different, so you have to learn to appreciate their strengths and their weaknesses. You cannot decide that because this person has the strength, the other person should also have their strength.
You have this great strength, which I want us to end on. The strength to lead and the strength to start whatever you consider is necessary. The strength of going on your initiative, and that initiative led you to start Hopeful Sites Foundation. Tell me about it.
When you said the strength to lead, hey, I couldn't believe it.
Yes.
Let me give you something. When I was in Wesley Girls, they wanted me to be a class leader, and I just didn't want to. So those who voted for me, especially one of my very good friends, she's now in the stage, she's called Elizabeth, Dr. Elizabeth Ajo Awudi. And once she pushed people to vote for me, for 2 weeks I was not on talking terms with her because I just didn't want to lead. So when it comes to leadership, I wouldn't say I'm a natural leader, but when I put my heart to something, I always want to make sure that I set it going. So it's about initiative. It's about taking the first step. With Hopeful Sites, it wasn't easy taking the first step. It was very challenging. I was wondering, who is it? Even with media people, how was I going to buy media time? But you were so gracious. Kyei, Darkwah. Amazing. So when it comes to these things, it's about being bold. My experience with Hopeful Sites is that you have to be very bold to take that first step? Where was I even going to get the funding? My big brother was very generous. When I asked for just last year during the Dukrom Eprede outreach, I asked him for just 1,000 Ghana cedis, and he gave me 5,000.
So, to finish the program today, I want you to tell Ghana what Hopeful Sight is doing in the month of March. Can we do this?
For Glaucoma Week, Hopeful Sight has a number of activities. Yesterday we had a webinar. Unfortunately, couldn't join in. It was about creating awareness. Hopeful Sight, first of all, it's a very young foundation. It was established in 2024, and the aim or the mission is to create awareness, is to carry out community outreaches, and it's all about eye, everything eye, and it's also about research. And then vision rehabilitation. That's something that is not so common in Ghana. We have the Ghana Blind Union trying to do their best, but we want assistive technology that those who are gainfully employed but have several degrees of visual impairment can still use. So rehabilitation is very key. So as
and
part
this
of the
month, you're
yes.
doing an outreach. Can you
Yes,
wrap up with just
tomorrow we are doing an outreach at Medina Market. We are screening about 4,000 market women. And a big shout out to Bell Aqua. They are supporting us with bottles of water. Then Flora, that's the Delta Paper Mill company. They are also supporting us with souvenirs for the women. And I know it's going to be amazing. Then on Friday, Class Media Group. We are setting up as a clinic here. So if you want to have your eyes checked, maybe you can come to Class Media. I wouldn't advise the markets.
Thank you very much. Dr. Wendoline Owusua Asiedu-Twum. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Master of the Game. My name is Darkwah, Kwasi Darkwah. May all the joy of each new day greet you with the rising sun, and may it wrap you close around until the day is done. Now we've come to the end of another beautiful story. We leave you with love and respect and give God the glory. See ya. The discerning audience, the knowledgeable, the stylish, and the classy get together to enjoy